So, Spotting TV's interview guest today is Brett Snyder, also known as Crankyflier, an independent aviation blog with more than 160,000 followers on Twitter. While you live in California, you are not only the expert for the US market. I can read in your comments and in your blog articles a lot of the European market, the Asian market. So I think you're, what can I call you? A journalist, or what do you call yourself?
I don't think I'm a journalist traditionally. I haven't been trained as a journalist. Media, analyst, any of those types of things. My background is not journalism, it's the airline industry. So, I used to work for the airlines. I did pricing for America West Airlines. I did strategy for United, marketing and strategy. So that's where I come from. And the writing, the media piece really comes out of my airline experience and knowledge.
But I read on your blog that's not your core business. So you do a kind of concierge service. Is this right?
Yeah, so Cranky Concierge is our air travel assistance business, and we help people book flights. We do all travel, not just flights, but so traditional travel agent type of work. But we've also built tools that we monitor flights. We help 24 hours a day. Everyone's an expert on airfare. So if there's a problem, missing a connection, delay, cancellation, any of that, we step in to help when there's a problem with that. And so that's our main expertise. And we help businesses, we help leisure travelers, we help everyone.
So coming back to your name, I think this is one of the most questions you get. Crankyflier. When I translate this in German, it is something like kranker Flieger oder sowas. That means a kind of mad person. But behind your aviation mad, is it right?
Yeah, the name actually came from a friend years ago that used to call me Cranky Pants because maybe I could be a little cranky. So, but it's not necessarily mad. It's not as strong as that. But that's where the name came from. It's the way that I write. I write with sarcasm and snark and things like that. So I think it fits, but I know sometimes the name confuses people. They think that I just hate airlines and get angry about what they do, but it's the exact opposite often because my background having worked for the airlines, I try and explain what the airlines are doing and why it makes sense and sometimes why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the idea why I contacted you is as some years ago I did the same because you always do this list at the end of the year, the airlines we lost. So we lost a lot of airlines 2019. Maybe we can talk about 2 or 3. And I switched to the list. So in the background, in the video, we can see the list scrolling.
Oh, sure.
And if someone is interested in going some deeper analysis, he can do it. First question, I saw in the first lines that you work together with CH Aviation. This is a Switzerland-based company. What about this?
Yeah, so I think, have a database with the best information on what airlines stopped operating. It's amazing how much detail they have on some of the smallest airlines all around the world. And so I started talking to Thomas there years ago about this, and he provided me the list. And so now every year they send me the list of what they have. I also keep track during the year. So anytime I see an airline go out of business, I put it on the list. I already have 2 on the list for 2020, including, one is Ernest in Italy, which the Italians announced that they're going to revoke their authority next week, I guess. But so I keep track of the airlines myself, but then CH Aviation is incredible at filling in all of the gaps of the airlines that, I didn't see during the year.
And I saw there's a small trial. You can try it for 2 weeks free of charge. And if someone is interested to go into these.
Yeah, there's a link on the website. If you go to the post and click through, you can try it. It's not an inexpensive site, but for people that need the type of information they provide, it's a fantastic website for that. So certainly worth a look. And the 2 weeks for free you can always do and see if it gives people what they need.
Perfect. So I switched to the list. Just a second.
Great.
And all the links you can find beside or downwards in this video later on for all the people who want the direct link. So let me scroll through. For me as a German, the first one I can see is from February. Germania is the name. And you pointed out that this is not a subsidiary of Lufthansa. No? It's a very old airline, with different names in its history.
Lufthansa has so many different airline names. I think people just assume that they're all owned by Lufthansa, but no, this one, I was surprised at how long they had been around actually, since 1978. But this is one of those airlines, like many others that have failed over the last few years. Charter carrier that started, tried to become something different when that model started to fade as low-cost carriers took over, and eventually they went out of business. So in a sense, it's similar to Air Berlin, that started out as a charter airline in the 70s. And of course, Air Berlin was much bigger and had a more spectacular failure, I suppose. But still, this is something that's been common all around Europe, that Monarch in the UK, all these airlines that have tried to shift from the charter model. All these airlines that have tried to shift from the charter model that haven't been able to successfully do that.
As you mentioned, the charter model, I think one important point is what you pointed out, that they lost the contract with TUI, and this was one of their main feeder. And so after this, they struggled and never get back normally in normal operations. I think an old
not
name...
Not for lack of trying. They tried a lot of things, but none of them worked.
Yeah. I think another name with history is Fly BMI.
Yeah.
But a little bit of this is right in the air as Logan Air, is it right?
Well, yes. So this is a very strange one because I think most people thought BMI had gone out of business years ago when British Airways took over most of the mainline business. But British Airways didn't keep the regional business. And so that ended up becoming Fly BMI. And it was BMI Regional before. And it continued to fly within the UK. And in the UK, there are so many of these regional little operators that fly around, connecting all the cities outside of London. British Airways cares about nothing outside of London for the most part. It's London. It really should be London Airways. You'll hear some people say that. So you have all these small operators that do this, and Fly BMI was one. Now it didn't do well. Its parent also owns Logan Air, which is out of Scotland, which I actually flew this year, and Logan Air has taken over some of those regional jets and some of the better routes that Fly BMI had. I will be curious to see how Logan Air does, if it is trying to do too much or if it's successful. We'll see. But basically, the owners of Fly BMI said, we don't need this anymore.
Okay. I know Logan Air from my home base, airport Düsseldorf. I'm sitting in Berlin right now, but I come from this western part of Germany. And I saw Logan Air. I think they fly to Birmingham. Is it right? I'm not sure.
That is probably true. They fly a lot of those, and that's what they've been growing, are some of those flights to the continent from these secondary cities, throughout the UK. And of course, they're a Scottish airline, so a lot of their operations are up there, which is what I flew this year. I flew from Edinburgh to Islay in Scotland. They have an interesting route map.
So what about when I scroll through the list, I see a lot of well-known airline names. What are the most spectacular ones from your side?
The most spectacular. Well, I think WOW Air is certainly one. WOW came on very quickly in Iceland, got a lot of airplanes, made a lot of very bad decisions. And really, they were trying to do the same thing Iceland Air does, but they were trying to do it for cheaper. And, it is funny because Iceland Air was always really the original low-cost carrier, right? I know, Americans used to fly into Luxembourg on Iceland Air because it was so cheap. Back when fares were more controlled, this was the way to go. So it's funny to think that, as the low-cost carrier gets older and grows up, then another low-cost carrier comes in to try and do it better. But WOW Air made a lot of bad moves, and it was really just a matter of time until it failed. And it did. It failed. So that was one of the most spectacular. I think Jet Airways was probably another big one out of India. One of the most historic companies flying airplanes there. It's a very young aviation market. They have so many different airlines that have started up in the last few years that this was a big loss. Although people saw it coming, it hadn't been doing well for some time. But it was still a big failure. And then, of course, possibly the biggest one, especially in Europe, was Thomas Cook. That was, the 150-year-old company, not the airline, but Thomas Cook. And to see that disappear, especially with the way that British law works, where there is no reorganization and the company's just gone.
This was very confusing because it's an English-German company, and a lot of parts are based in Germany, and the state came, and I think at the moment for the tour operator, so it's a confusing name. There's an airline with the same name, there's a travel agency chain with the same name, there's a tour operator, and a lot of call centers in the backgrounds. So at the moment, I think more than 50% in Germany are saved. And in between is Condor Airlines, the German brand.
Right. So it's very confusing. Because of course there is the travel agency business, the tour operator, all that under Thomas Cook. But on the airline side, there were at one point, there were 5 airlines. And even more before that. But so Thomas Cook Belgium shut down a couple years ago. Then Thomas Cook in Scandinavia was some investors have saved that, and that's now called Sun Class. And there was Thomas Cook in the Balearics. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but I think that was all about low cost labor, putting a couple airplanes down there. That's gone. And then the biggest pieces were Thomas Cook in the UK and then Condor, which those are also the 2 biggest pieces in the US, with Condor being the biggest, touching the US. And so the funny thing about this, though, is that it sounds like the airlines were doing well. And it was the tour operator business and the debt and everything that was really dragging the company into insolvency. And so these airlines were doing well. Now, Thomas Cook UK won't have a chance to prove it can do well on its own. It's gone. But Condor, the state, as you said, they've agreed to help bail them out until they can settle it, and so Condor keeps flying. And it will be very interesting to see what the future holds for Condor, because I know Lufthansa was interested at one point, which I don't think the competition committees would approve that. I think that's probably a difficult one. But, there are plenty of people that are interested in Condor and what it has, what it has built in Frankfurt and growing into Munich a little bit as well. And then, of course, from all around Germany to, shorter haul destinations. So very, very interesting to see what's going to happen there.
But what do you expect? Do you know the fleet average age? It's even the long haul ones are the 767s, very old, 27 years or something.
Yeah, 25 to 30-year-old. But what's interesting and unique, I think, is that most of the airplanes, especially on the wide body side, they have always been with Condor. So, they have taken good care of the airplanes. They've maintained them well. They can keep flying them. But at some point, they will need a fleet renewal. And that's expensive. So you need to find out who's willing to put the money in to do that fleet renewal. And I think that's what they need to figure out now. They have the state aid from the government to keep them flying while they explore their options. But it seems likely to me that another airline is going to have to step in, or could be a package operator, something like TUI. Don't know exactly, but they lost a lot when Thomas Cook went away. Condor lost a lot, so it's hard to know what will happen there.
Yeah, the Lufthansa strategy is to bring the Eurowings long haul flights into service and go to the Condor routes as well. But Eurowings doesn't have the background, so Lufthansa is not buying some long haul planes which could take this all. So I'm not sure if Lufthansa is so interested. It doesn't look like this.
Well, you're saying Lufthansa has a strategy. Okay. No, but now what they're saying is that Eurowings will just do short haul, and they're going to create a new airline to do long haul. They're modeling off of Edelweiss in Switzerland. Oh. Yeah. And so I don't know. Eurowings flies to some place. They fly to Phoenix and Las Vegas, some places in the U.S. The Eurowings brand is going away on the long haul eventually. They'll do something new. But I don't understand it. Lufthansa, ever since they sold their stake in Condor, has never been very good at this. The long haul leisure, or the leisure pieces in general. I guess short haul, they have Sun Express into Turkey and all that. But Edelweiss, which was around before Lufthansa stepped in there, they have been a pretty good operator for Swiss. And so maybe this will be the right model. I don't know.
Edelweiss is a kind of charter, premium class charter. So a little bit very different to the Eurowings now. Yeah. So I'm not sure what happens over there. So I'm looking forward to this. I hope
they're just lower cost. I think they're just lower cost than Swiss, but they operate with a premium cabin, and I don't know.
So let's have a look into the future. We saw the past 2019 a lot of airlines which run into bankruptcy. Which candidates do you see which will struggle 2020?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Well, of course the big three, IAG, Air France KLM, and Lufthansa Group, they'll all be fine. Maybe they'll decide to add some new brands or get rid of brands like Air France did with June last year, the worst idea ever. But yeah, other than outside of those, I think a lot of airlines are at risk. SAS continues to struggle. Let's not forget Norwegian. they
Yeah.
Norwegian is fascinating because they had a good business before they started long haul. Then they spent a ton of money, bought a bunch of airplanes, and ruined their business. And now they have realized they need to fix the business. They're making smart moves. They're doing smart things. But will they run out of money before they can fix it? That's the question. So I think, winter is the hardest. And so usually if something's going to happen, it'll happen between now and April. After that, they start making a lot of money. Airlines don't go out of business in the summer, usually, not in Europe. And so then, in the fall again, if they get through the summer and say, we don't have enough money anymore, then that's when it happens again. So Norwegian, I'll be watching closely this year to see if they can turn it around fast enough. There are airlines that should be out of business. You can just look to Italy for that. Alitalia should have been out of business about 10 times, but the state keeps saving it. Air Italy, same thing, except they've been supported by Qatar Airways, but neither of those airlines are doing well, and they're desperately trying to find a way to save them. But I don't think, especially with Alitalia, I don't think they'd ever be allowed to fail. And same thing for LOT Polish. They've had a really tough time lately with the engine issues on the 787. And so they've had a lot of airplanes on the ground because of that they're waiting for. They've tried to fix their business. They've made some changes. They've made progress, but they're still an old state-supported airline that you can look at a lot of those. Tarom in Romania. Many of those smaller state carriers are the ones that are at risk if the governments ever decide to stop supporting them, just like happened with Malev in Hungary.
Yeah.
So,
and you're from the US. What about the US market and the North American market? Everything fine with American United?
Yeah, well, they're not going anywhere. Those airlines are fine. The U.S. started consolidating much earlier than in Europe, and we don't have the same border problem that European airlines do with different traffic rights and everything else. And airlines here don't need to keep all the brands the way Lufthansa and IAG and Air France KLM do. So there really aren't many airlines in the U.S. you could look at and say that's an airline that's in trouble. If there were, it would be smaller carriers, smaller turboprop operators or independent operators. Those are the ones that might find themselves in trouble. But really, there isn't anything this year that would point to a big airline failing at all.
So, thanks a lot, Brett, for your overview, and for your look into the future.
Sure.
One of my last questions is, we are a spotting website. What do you think about plane spotting? Are you a plane spotter as well, or?
Of course. I live near LAX, one of the best plane spotting places in the world. I have every September we have an event here where we go out to the In-N-Out Burger next to LAX and we watch the airplanes come in. And it's fantastic. I'm lucky here. We have so many different airlines and a lot of A380s, still a few 747s. It's a great variety, and we have great weather too, which is helpful. But yeah, I love spotting. I don't take photos. That's not my thing. But I love spotting and watching airplanes, and I take my kids to the airport to do it as well.
That's a good father. Yes.
Right.
What about the video streaming and the live streaming? Do you know those guys here in Europe who do this?
So I don't really watch that much, but I do scroll through YouTube a fair bit and look for some of those windy days in Manchester where the Emirates A380 is, having a daring landing, or in Hamburg for that matter. I do like looking around, but I don't care about the live streaming as much. I'm more just looking for the more interesting clips that are out there.
Okay, I will try to do my best. I have a clip here where I combined a Beluga XL from Hamburg Finkenwerder with a Miniatur Wunderland. Do you know this? This is a small, tiny model airport in the Hamburg city center.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it.
That's fantastic airport. Incredible. I can send you the link and have a look. It's crazy. The combination of the small model 1 to 100 is the size, and the big Beluga from Finkenwerder Airport, from the factory.
Yeah, send me the clip. I love it.
So thanks a lot for your time, Brett, and thanks for the outlook. I think just one more question.
Sure.
I Googled a little bit about if there are any other interviews with you, and I see that you do a lot of interviews with CEOs of airlines as well. But there was one with a puppet. What is this all about? Is it allowed? I want to show this picture here in the back.
Yeah.
This was a guy from Air New Zealand. This was a crazy video I found.
Yeah, that was fun. So Air New Zealand, they're a fun airline, but they had this puppet that they decided was going to be the mascot of the airline at some point. He's long gone now, but they did. They
Italian accent or something.
Was it Italian? I don't know what that accent was, but that was years ago. But yeah, that was funny. I like that. I'll do an interview with a puppet anytime. Maybe I can get like a Berlin bear to talk to me or something like this from the Olympic pitch. Do you remember that from? Yeah, when was that? They were trying to get the Olympics, and they had the bear was the mascot for it.
I don't know. Not the 36 Olympics, I would say.
I have to look this up now.
I think I was there at the time, and I said, I don't know what's going on, but there was something going on.
So you talked with the Berlin bear. How funny.
I'll talk with any animal that can talk. That sounds great to me.
So I spared this as the last question because if someone is disappointed with our interview, then I would say I link to that interview with that puppet.
That's right.
That's
great.
So
that was an interesting one.
So the link is down here in the video or in the audio. I spread it at Spotify as well. So thanks a lot, Brett, and have a great 2020 with only few airlines which go bankruptcy. Maybe no.
I hope so.
But we can't avoid this. Maybe
every year, though. Every year,
and maybe we see us next year with the next list.
Maybe I'll put Berlin Brandenburg on the list because it'll never open.
You're invited to come to Berlin. I can bring you around. It's only 25 minutes away, the new airport. And we are sure they will open. If there is a flight, I don't know, but they will open something. There will be no official party. So we have to do a private party. Oh. And I organized something because they opened the new airport and 1 week later they close the Tegel one, so the old one. And maybe there's something like a destroying party or something, and that might be fun.
It may just destroy itself if you wait long enough. I have flown into Berlin once in my life. It was 1990, and I came in on Pan Am into Tegel, and on an A310, by the way. And that was the one time I flew into Berlin. So I think I need to come visit again. It's been a little too long.
So you're invited. Come to Germany. Thanks a lot for this.
All right. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Goodbye.
All right.